Good afternoon and welcome to the Week 11 edition of Talking Underdog Fantasy and Battle Royale. We're going to keep with the structure from last week. We'll take a look at last week's contest. We'll take a look at the winner, how I did, and then, of course, get you all prepped for this week's drafts by jumping in a few ourselves. If you're new to Underdog, don't know what I'm talking about, you can sign up for a new Underdog Fantasy account, use promo code ETR, and we'll get you a matchup deposit bonus of up to $100. Now, let's jump in. Let's take a look at last week. Everyone, chat. Let me know how you did, what your thoughts were, and then we can kind of jump into this slate. But starting off, let's take a look at last week. Back-to-back weeks again. Big name was obviously Justin Fields. Make this full screen. Top lineup here. Daryl 5433 takes down that first place prize of $35K last week. They, trying to flatten this out, which I think is nice. For the early weeks of the season, it was $50K up top. Last week, 35. I think they may have even dropped it down a tad bit more as well, just to spread out those payouts, which is, for us that are trying to kind of, make this a sustainable thing, try to make work on our ROI. The flatter it is, the better for all of us. With this lineup, you pretty much needed the nuts of all guys that were all pretty much being drafted. I think even Christian Kirk was still drafted in most drafts last week. I don't have his ADP, but we have the Fields, who was going in the third round or so. In this lineup, it looks like probably Justin Jefferson or Travis Kelce was first pick. Justin Jefferson fell back to him in the late second. Probably then went Justin Fields with the third, Jonathan Taylor with the fourth, CeeDee Lamb fifth, and Christian Kirk sixth. Everything just kind of went right here. There's a mini game stack with Christian Kirk and Travis Kelce. I like that, and probably was his reason for going with that last pick with the Christian Kirk. We were looking at that one and pretty much any kind of mini stacks we could get in the DFS landscape. And so I think it was one of Pat Thorman's 3 fastest and games for highest snaps and pace, and makes sense just to get as much action as possible from that game. The others were all just kind of lone pieces. And if we take a look at the team that got second place, I was inverted, took down 15K, and the point difference was literally 0.2 points. Very similar, only differences in lineup. So also had Justin Fields, also had Jonathan Taylor, also had Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb. So the 2v2 was Barkley and Cole Kmet versus Christian Kirk and Travis Kelce. Very, very similar builds. I think at this one, they probably went with Barkley in the early first, Jefferson in the late second, and then probably the same thing, Fields, Taylor, Lamb with 3, 4, 5, and then rounding it out with the last pick of Cole Kmet, which gets you that Justin Fields stack. So love that. They're again, didn't have any mini stacks here, just had the correlation with the Justin Fields and Cole Kmet aspect, and worked out very well for these two. For me personally, and I think I might have mentioned this in the show last week, I was not on the Fields train because he was getting drafted in the early third. And not that I didn't see he had the upside, but for me, it was just, I was drafting a lot when we were pretty confident that Josh Allen was going to play. And so when I started doing a majority of mine, I was getting Josh Allen actually substantially after Justin Fields was going, because Josh Allen, I think his ADP ended up around it was in the fourth round for a lot of the time. Sometimes you could it almost got to the point where if you got Stephon Diggs, you had your choice of getting Josh Allen with the third or fourth round. And so I just built up a whole bunch of these stacks where early on in the week, it was, hey, if Josh Allen actually plays, then you're getting some substantial opportunity here. If he doesn't, I could still, get that late swap to someone like maybe Derek Carr or someone else who was not being drafted much and still feel okay. But yeah, just too much upside for a Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs when you're getting them in the second, third, second, and fourth round. For me with this one, I also grabbed Dalvin to get that bring back for the Buffalo game. And then, I think it was just, hey, I didn't have the 30-point game out of Justin Jefferson and the 32-point game out of CeeDee Lamb. Those were really the large outliers, even though my 2 wide receivers still put up 19 and 23. Compared to that 30-32, that's too much to call back from. Dalton Schultz was fine. still put up 14.4. Pretty happy with that. But compared to obviously the Kelsey 17, Komet 21, it was a trailing. And yeah, all I did is get a double up here of $10. Overall on the week, I think I lost about 10 to 20%, just because I got a decent amount of cashes because I was getting a lot of Aaron Jones very late. We talked about that. His ADP was 34.5. Was hitting on a lot of the guys that put up points, but just not the elite ones that you saw with the others. So overall, hey, when it's a week like that where I see value and then other just, hey, core players that are always drafted in going off, not going to win, that's fine. Still feel pretty good about the process. Love to get in that John. It's just so hard to get the Allen Diggs stack in general, but it looks like we may have another opportunity this week that we could talk to. Okay, looking at chat, I see Andrew in here. Yeah, just talking through. So he's showing that, yeah, for this week, 25K to first, second and third, 12 and 9. Love this flatter payout structure. Because, yeah, we are still building with this contrarian angle. We're still taking it like, hey, we're trying to find that nut outcome. But to be honest, the difference between you can get it all perfect. You can find that 1% owned player. But when the difference between first and second is literally 0.2 points, as we saw right there, nice to get those top, a little flatter as well. So great to see that, Andrew and the whole Underdog team. Before we jump into this week and some drafts, see if there's any questions in chat I can go to. So Gerald specifically asking, I think I correlate too much. What are your thoughts on correlation when drafting? I think it depends how much are you correlating, because my general thoughts are that if you are, it makes sense to at least grab that one stack partner. And now, yes, there are going to be outliers, and those outliers are going to be in situations where the QB that you're drafting can substantially make up for it on the ground. But in general, when that QB is going to do well, I think one of his pass catchers does go off. Now, in DFS, a lot of the times what we do is we do a double stack. And the reason why we may do a double stack is because obviously there's additional correlation for the quarterback with those wide receivers. But usually you're getting a second wide receiver and you're getting him at a substantial discount. So it gives you some cost, there's opportunity cost that you're actually gaining by getting a cheaper option that allows you to go with a bigger option later on. In these drafts, there's just not that much opportunity cost, to be honest. So an example, if you're going to go with, okay, so let's say, I think last week we were talking about kind of the Kyler Murray aspect. And yes, you can go Hopkins and you can maybe go like a Rondale Moore as well. And like in DFS, that sounds fantastic because Rondale Moore's role has been increasing, let alone ignore the Kyler not playing injury thing. But like the chance of both of those hitting such high nut outcomes for a QB with Kyler is kind of rare. And so that's why I'm very rarely drafting two wide receivers on the same team with that quarterback. But in the other lens, I am perfectly content doing a wide receiver and a tight end, because what we're looking for from Hopkins and Rondale, well, we're hoping that they're going to outscore other teams that have Stephon Diggs and Justin Jefferson, or Justin Jefferson and CeeDee Lamb, or whoever it is. And like, that's very difficult. But if we're trying to get our wide receiver tight end to just outscore another team's wide receiver tight end, because tight end is so volatile and the upside is really not there other than maybe with kind of Kelsey and such. Andrew's obviously being hurt and stuff. Like, I'm more willing to say, okay, I want to make a bet on that game. And when I'm now going with a QB stack with his wide receiver and tight end, I am more incentivized as well to make sure that I get the bring back from the other team, as long as it's a player that has substantial upside. If I'm playing the Giants, I don't need to force a Wan'Dale Robinson or a Darius Slayton as the bring back, but maybe I do Saquon for the game environment. And so that's where I think like the correlation, we still stick by our rules. It does make sense. I think what's hard is that majority of the time, the lineups that are going to end up at the top of this are going to be just completely single one-offs. And the person just kind of, hey, darts got there, they hit all the perfect ones, and it went well. And that's frustrating because we're like, ugh, they're not correlating, but they're winning. So maybe I shouldn't correlate. I don't think that's the right process, because even though, yes, that is what happened there, but if you also want to take that strategy, you're now competing against what, 20, 30, 40,000 people that are also kind of just throwing darts. We want to kind of play a different game. Yes, we're not going to win that often, but what we're trying to do is say like, hey, we're going to use this structure, use the correlation, use the stacking, use the mini game stacks to give us an edge. Now, all of that said, the one time, the hypothetical, the situation of when it maybe doesn't make sense to be stacking anymore is if we feel that everyone is doing it. And now every time, let's use Jalen Hurts as an example. Let's say everyone is stacking Jalen Hurts with either A.J. Brown or Devonta Smith because, hey, no more Dallas Goedert, so increased concentrated offense, increased volume for those two. Okay, so now everyone is stacking with at least one of those, and you feel that there's a way to get unique in this is, okay, I no longer want to stack with those because I think there's an outcome for this game where Jalen Hurts runs for 3 touchdowns, 100 yards, and none of his wide receivers do anything. Now, in that scenario, because you're assuming that everyone's stacking with A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith, when Hurts has that 40-point game, that's who you needed. You're now using other pieces that surpass A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. That's where a situation is like, oh, maybe I shouldn't have correlated. Now, what I'm arguing, and based off what I'm seeing in drafts, is that there's enough people drafting that are not correlating that it's not actually gaining an edge because so many people are just kind of drafting the best plays, maybe auto drafting. Maybe they're not really into the DFS as we are and watching a stream at noon on a Thursday to understand kind of why we take these correlation approaches. So if we'll continue to watch it. If we get to a place where in chat, you let me know if you're seeing this, I'm continuing to watch it where it's like, damn, it really feels like every single time I look at the drafts and every QB has a stack partner, maybe then with some of the rushing QBs, we start getting a little, maybe our way to get unique is by not stacking. That all said, I don't think we're there yet. I don't think we're going to get there anytime soon, but it's worth at least discussing. Okay. Gerald here. So what's the best way to avoid chalky builds? Or do we have to think about that for Battle Royale? Okay, so I think the easiest way is to find 1 or 2 players that are just not being drafted in any tournament, because that's we don't get real-time data from Underdog about who is stacking what, how many people are drafting Josh Allen with Stephon Diggs. Like, we're just not going to get that data. And obviously they shouldn't give it to us. But what they are giving us is how many times people are being drafted based off their ADP. That gives us a good feel for how often that player is being drafted. And so if we can identify players that are not being drafted either virtually at all or in very low scenarios, that's how we can guarantee that we're getting unique. And when you have the ability to kind of say, okay, this is a very chalky lineup. I stacked my QB with a wide receiver. I brought a running back on the other side as a bring back. I think a lot of people are doing this. Well, then maybe with your 5th and 6th round pick, you should really focus on guys that aren't being drafted. Or at least with your 6th round, draft a guy that is literally not being drafted at all. Have a 35.9, 36.0 ADP, because you know the rest of your lineup is probably chalky because, hey, like the ADPs fit together. If we have, let's see, for this week, I'm going to take a look right now at the rankings. Last I saw, Josh Allen was somewhere around like 7. Yeah, so this week you have Diggs at 4.5 ADP right now and Josh Allen at 7.8. Well, what does that mean? It means that almost every draft, no, I don't know, almost every, a ton of drafts, Stephon Diggs goes in the 4th or 5th spot, and then Josh Allen goes in the 8th or 9th spot, and whoever drafted Diggs gets Josh Allen. Like, that becomes a very easy stack to see. So in that scenario, I'm not saying don't draft Allen and Diggs. I think it's an absolutely amazing stack. I think that game may not actually get played in Buffalo and they move it to somewhere like Detroit and they play a dome and the over-under goes from 41 up to 50 and the people who got that stack are popping bottles and celebrating. And so we should be going for that stack. But when we grab that stack and we maybe, I don't know, let's see, maybe we grab, I'm trying to see what we got here. Nick Chubb has an ADP of 16.3. So you could probably grab Nick Chubb as your bring back for it. And now you've got a game stack with your first 3 picks. But a lot of other people do as well. And that's okay. We're still getting upside. But also make sure your later picks are contrarian. Same thing like DFS. If you're going to build a lineup and go with the 2 chalk running backs, then you probably want to grab a stack elsewhere other players that are low owned to balance it out. All right, we'll keep going a few more through these. Gerald had a follow-up. So if you draft Hurts without Brown or Smith, should we consider a bring back from the opposing team? So consider, sure. I mean, it matters, obviously, who they're playing, what that looks like. But I think, yeah, because this kind of scoring, underdog scoring, is heavily touchdown based. It's half PPR. There's no bonus points. So a lot of the points, just as Levitan talks about with FanDuel when he creates his strategy for tournaments, is focusing on where the touchdowns are coming from. So if we are drafting Jalen Hurts, whether it's with Brown or without Smith, like honestly, your qualifier of if you draft him without Brown or Smith doesn't matter to me. The same strategy in a bring back applies whether you stack Hurts or you don't. Because in this scenario, all we care about is that Hurts is scoring a lot of touchdowns. Yes, rushing yards, those are great too, especially for a QB. But he probably still needs, like, let's say 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns. And if he's getting that many touchdowns, that means that, hey, a team like Philly that for the first half of the season was blowing out teams in the first half and then not needing to play their studs or not playing it much in the second half. In this scenario, like, hey, we want the other team to actually be scoring points and staying in the game. So I probably am looking for a bring back. So this week specifically, Jalen Hurts plays the Colts. Who do you want as the bring back? Well, I mean, Jonathan Taylor, let's see. He's going 12, so that could be an option. Michael Pittman, maybe Matt Ryan back. Like maybe actually that becomes more interesting. Michael Pittman going 34.8. 34.8. That's not being drafted in that many of drafts. That's about 30% of drafts that he's going. And then you also, if you really want to go for it, Paris Campbell. He's been hot the last couple weeks. With Matt Ryan as that connection. Again, kept that connection going with 17.1 here. And he's being drafted in 35.8. 35.8 means that player's only being drafted in about 5% of drafts. So that's a situation where, like, hey, if you want to try to find that opportunity for the bring back, like based off the rest of your lineup, you can determine how chalky you want your bring back partner to be. Okay. All right, nice. John DM me 90 drafts that they've tracked so far. Let me take a look at this. We can share the screen. So John Warner is one of the Badge Bros who does some great content as well. And so they basically have been like crowdsourcing a lot of the within the week data aspects. And so specifically, I think this is the one who leading it is Chad Mashke. Okay. So let me pull this up on stream and we can kind of talk through what we're seeing for this week. Kind of how this data is going to go. Cool. Okay, so looking at this, this is my first time, so I'm trying to digest it in real time with you all. But you can see how, hey, he basically just tracks all of the drafts that happen. And so John said there's about 90 of them here. And it's interesting. So if we look to see, like, okay, Josh Allen, QB stack plus run back. That's what that is. Okay, so stacking Josh Allen 61% of the time, 30% having a run back here. Jalen Hurts being stacked 70% of the time, that example we just gave, and a 31% run back. Joe Burrow, 76%, 25%. This is really interesting because, I mean, so for me, I think that, like, hey, if you draft Joe Burrow, it 100% makes sense to stack him with a player. Because, yes, Joe Burrow can do stuff on the ground. He may be able to sneak in like a rushing touchdown, but for the most part, his explosive games come when they're just letting it rip. He's throwing it 40, 50 times. He's throwing multiple touchdowns, and you hope that, hey, you're finding the right stack partner there in Higgins, Boyd, or Hurst. Jalen Hurts, 70%. I don't like, it's an interesting, like, I think I still want to stack him, but like that number is high enough that maybe there's times that I'm content not stacking him because Jalen Hurts can do so much and get it done on the ground. So this is interesting, and like you know, continue to kind of watch this stuff in your drafts. You can get a feel for it, but I think that's a good way to just kind of visualize like where stacking makes sense, where bringbacks make sense, all of that stuff. All right, let's do one more question, and then we'll jump into some drafts for this week. So Andrew asking, how do you adjust for smaller field contests like goal line stand and the bomb, which are 1,000 entries, 276 entries? Feels like you don't have to be as unique. 276, the bomb, I completely agree. I think that's one where you could probably play it a bit more straight up. Definitely go with like, hey, game stack elements. I still probably want to try to find a unique piece in most. You don't need to go completely off the board. But what's nice here is like, hey, if you find someone that has that 35.8 ADP, okay, I think that means he's about drafted in about 5% of drafts. Now, out of 276, that means you're looking at around what, 13 to 14 people have that. So there's still value out of 276, where if you can pick that guy and you're only giving up like a couple points of projected value, that player goes off, you're now only competing against another, what, 12, 13 people. So I don't think like, hey, you need to go as crazy off the board as when there's 50,000, because the upside really isn't there. But like, I definitely think with 1,000, it still makes sense. Like 1,000 is still a lot. Even if someone's only drafted in 5% out of 1,000, like we're still talking about 50 teams. And there's still like, even though, yes, the payouts are kind of flat, like it's still fairly, like first place is still a substantial amount. We're still going for first. So I'm still trying to get that kind of uniqueness on any of these contests. DeBomb might be the first like level at that 276, where it's like, I don't need to go as crazy off the board. But I'm still not just going through and drafting best available each time for that. I still probably want to find someone that's in that like less than 10% of being drafted. Okay, those are good questions. Keep them coming in here. Appreciate the kind of kind thoughts as well for all these as well. I'm enjoying doing these. I enjoy especially, you know, hey, if other people feel like they're getting value out of this. So appreciate all that. Let's jump into some drafts. Okay. All right, we're hopping in. Come join us. Waiting for 3 more. Let's do some fun drafts. Cool. And yeah, as always, if there are any other questions, pop them in as we go through. I'll look back. So Paul saying this week, the top 4 QBs are stacked quite often. And yeah, I mean, I think what we just looked at, that sheet even further shows that if we kind of just go from a more intuitive sense. Lamar's probably the interesting one, where I don't remember exactly what it was in that spreadsheet, but who would you be stacking Lamar with? Like Duvernay, I guess. Maybe Isaiah Likely. I kind of like that one with a 35.6 here. But I don't think you have as clear line of sight to the Mark Andrews. And there's argument that Lamar can obviously finish as the number 1 QB without a partner going off. So if I just think through like from a stack aspect, from Josh Allen, if I stack, I definitely want to go with, I'm probably going all 3 options, mixing them up. Diggs, Gabriel Davis, and Dawson Knox. I'm not really on Isaiah McKenzie. He can have like a decent week, but I don't think he really has the upside that we're looking for these kind of contests. Lamar, I'm probably, I don't know. Let's see what Duvernay's ADP is. 35.8. That's low enough that I would probably mix in some stacks there. But my primary one would be Mark Andrews, because there's no point in draft. Okay, so his ADP is actually 8.6. That's ridiculous. Do people actually think he's going to play? Chat, do people have the expectation? I was just expecting like he is not playing this week. Interesting. Okay. ADP of 8.6. I was going to say, so I guess that's what people are doing, is just stacking Lamar and Mark Andrews, ADP 9.2. Just an overall interesting one. But what I was saying, like, all right, let's start off here. I've got ETR rankings that we built out plugged in here. Diggs goes there, so we're losing out on the Josh Allen stack. We could go with the Lamar CeeDee Lamb, you already have the Jefferson one missing. Devontae, Denver gives up the least opposing points to QBs. Let's go with the CeeDee Lamb. We'll start with just chalk on the board. Okay, grab that. We're not going to get Justin Jefferson, but I do really like TJ Hawkinson and just the role he's had. If you look at the targets and the volume he's got in the past 2 weeks since he's joined Minnesota has been, I don't know, excessive to say the least. Obviously didn't do as much of it against Buffalo last week, but that's a very, very difficult defense. Despite that, higher scoring wonky game, I'm still pro Hawkinson. So I'm going to put him in the queue and think, okay, we're going to try to grab him. His ADP is 23. We'll probably grab him with the 17th or 20th pick. Now we can go with that elite wide receiver grouping that you guys know that I like. And grab Devontae from a running back. I think there's a decent amount of running backs this week. Let's grab Devontae. Got to be careful not to let Hawkinson go. So we start off with our elite wide receiver. I talked a little about this last week and why I like the elite wide receiver build. I do think that there are just not that many options that give you the projected and ceiling combo. I think any wide receiver just about has the same ceiling as these guys, but when you include the projected being so much higher than everyone else and then still having access to that ceiling, I think there's a lot of value in starting these drafts wide receiver if you're getting kind of that top tier. Previously, we didn't include CeeDee Lamb in that top tier, but hey, after what he did last week, that was just insane. And then also going against Minnesota at Minnesota, playing in the dome, in an environment that Minnesota can put up points, like that can just be a high score. And so we like that. Devontae's volume the last 2 weeks since that weird wonky game where he might have been a little sick or hurt, has been fantastic. Waller's still not playing. Maybe Hunter Renfrow is back this week. No, Hunter Renfrow plays an R. Forgot about that. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so no reason why Devontae can't just keep feasting. Also, from a QB wise, we now have Dak and Derek Carr as possibilities. Derek Carr not being drafted at all. Also, I think Denver gives up the least points to opposing QBs. So not a juicy one there. And you can see why we DTR have him ranked so low. So I don't really want to go with that. Oh, CG, you're watching the stream. You knew I was going to do it. At least show up in chat. Arf. All right, we're going to grab Joe Mixon. The pain of drafting on stream. No chance CG is taking TJ Hawkins in there at 16. He would have waited till 21. Shame. Okay. Let's bring it back. Okay. So we have our CeeDee Lamb. We have our Devontae. Grab Joe Mixon just as a one-off there. I don't really care for a bring back from Pitt unless, actually, there we go. That's going to be our bring back from Pitt. We're going to grab Freiermuth. Freiermuth is going to outscore your TJ Hawkinson, Chris. Get out of here. Now, do I want to grab Dak first? It's not as important to grab Dak first because we don't have that Minnesota aspect there. From a Denver, we could grab Cortland Sutton as a third wide receiver. Nope, Cortland Sutton already drafted. Crazy. Okay, this is a bit of a wonky draft. Maybe we can call it a stream draft. I don't want Jacobs. All right, let's go Dalvin. We'll get the bring back here rather than Hawkinson. So we still have the Dalvin. So we're going to have here mini stack with Dalvin and CD. If I can get Dak to fall to us, we'll get that game stack. Joe Mixon, going to try to get Freiermuth here for the bring back there. Okay, and there goes Freiermuth. What are you people? Okay, you wanted it for Higgins. Oh, the fun. That's okay. At least these are only the $5 drafts, unlike the best ball season where I don't think I have any of the live stream drafts in currently advancing from this off season. And I don't know what that says, whether it's trying to draft while doing the streams or if it was all you guys just sniping. But I don't feel as bad about these. But I think from a process-wise, all that stuff makes sense. So now these guys all have their QB. Everyone has their QB. Literally everyone. Yeah. Okay. So we know we're at least going to get Dak to us. We need a tight end. It's not really worth drafting Isaiah Likely right now. I'd rather be doing that from getting Mark Andrews or waiting until later. I think that'll be a pretty common swap option. We can go Dulcich and get the Devontae bring back. And I do like just Dulcich in general, even though he did very little last week, just for the 1 for 11. The routes he was running are what we love to see. And if my memory serves, it's the right week. Russ basically missed him on like a 50-yarder by hitting his fingertips. That was a little painful. And obviously, we're going to grab the tight end first because we know that DFS Texas can't grab a QB, but he does want a tight end. So we're going to grab our tight end here. We get the mini correlation there. We're going to get the game stack with the Dak aspect, and then we just get the one-off with Mixon. Overall, doesn't matter how many times you guys snipe me. Doesn't matter what you come with me with. I'm still getting my stacks. I'm still making this happen. This is definitely still good for at least a double. Okay. Here we go, Gerald. That was me that took Frymuth. I had him queued up for my T. Higgins stack. Okay, that's okay. I know. It at least made sense for your team. And same with Chris G over here. For his team, he was going with... No, doesn't. All right, Chris G, we're not on speaking terms right now. That's okay. All right, let's throw another one out there. Let's go back. So overall, I mean, yeah, I kind of already reviewed my lineup, but I think I like where it really ended up. We got the Dak, the CD, the Dalvin Cook is the bring back. We're getting a mini stack and Dulcich and Devontae, and then Mixon as a one-off. And I think most important is that we didn't really give up substantially too much to get to this lineup. I'm getting all the correlation that I like. I'm still getting a, 35.4 ADP player there, which comes out to about 15% ownership. So I'm pretty happy with that. Overall, I like the team, and move on to the next one. Can I grade your draft, Gerald? Shoot. Unfortunately, I have to get there really quickly. Where are you? Oh, also, I was in... shoot. Okay. I was inverted in there. I'm not sure who that was, but that was the person that got second place in last week. So congrats to you. I was inverted. But what I was going to say is, unfortunately, I am not able to grade your draft because once it's over, I can't see the full draft board. But if you're in this next one, we can try again. Okay. All right, Paul, that's me. Thanks. Okay, there you go. Because I was inverted, there you go, Logan Ghost. Congrats on that. Big second place there. I'm sure those 0.2 points are going to haunt you for a little, but still a very, very nice takedown. So congrats. All right, CG, there you are again. Again, we're not happy. We're not happy, Chris. We're gonna see who's sniping who this time. We'll see. Okay. Let's actually go into this draft room, make it a little better for that. Justin Jefferson, clear number 1 or 2 option there. I think that was just phenomenal what he did last week. So impressive. It pains me that I am low in season long in best ball on Justin Jefferson simply because I was drafting Cooper Kupp above him. And I still have no regrets on that. I remember putting out a tweet that was just like, oh, it's rough that I have to be low on Justin Jefferson just because people are drafting him over Cooper Kupp. And Cooper Kupp was having an amazing season. I think even after putting up that like 1 or 2 pointer last week with no Stafford, he's still like the 3rd or 4th wide receiver overall. But that injury is unfortunate. And yeah, I'm kind of on the team that I'm not sure if we see him again the rest of the year. I don't know. I hope so. I think he's a fighter. I think he's going to want to, but I think the Rams team is just going to be in such shambles that they may just shut it down and not bring him back. It's sad state of affairs with that injury. But okay, we've got Justin Jefferson. CeeDee Lamb already went, so no stack option there. On the other side, from Dallas, could go Gallup. He really hasn't been doing that much. It doesn't really excite me. What excites me a little more is the Dalton Schultz. And so, hey, back with Dak, gets the volume, gets the efficiency. I wouldn't mind grabbing that. And we could go Dak to go with the Dalton Schultz to get that kind of full game stack aspect. I don't hate it. Usually when I grab a QB, I want to do it with where I have his number one option. Because in a game that Dak has a huge game, if CD also does, that really hurts us. But it's a possibility. So we'll keep that in mind. All right, CG goes there. Let's grab Amon-Ra. His role, the amount of the volume he's getting, his target percentage for the last 2 weeks, basically since they lost Hawkinson, has been insane. Yeah, the targets like 10, 9, 11 look nice, but when you actually see like his share, it's astonishing. I don't have the numbers offhand, but I think it's 30+% and only has risen over the past 2 weeks. He can have a blowout game at any point. Now, am I a little scared of playing against the Giants when Saquon Barkley had 35 rushes last week and it's a team that just wants to run the ball? Yes, because that really could slow the game down. But if Detroit can put up points, maybe even get ahead, I still think it's a decent game environment. Good enough to take them. Okay, we have a unique opportunity here where we can grab it. Jalen Hurts naked. We could even stack him. Nah, I don't think we want to do that. But I kind of just like getting a little uniqueness just from an ADP. It's probably not that. All right. So this may actually not be that unique because we reached on Amon-Ra and we got Jalen Hurts to fall to us here. Because theoretically we could have easily gone Jefferson, Hurts, and then likely gotten Amon-Ra. So I don't want to think that we are unique here. So let's ignore that. Maybe we're just going to try to get a, no bring back. I know stack partner Jalen Hurts. And I say that because AJ Brown is already taken. If we look at Devonta, you could go with it, but I already have 2 wide receivers. The projections for the kind of back end of the running backs drafted in these versus the back end of wide receivers is substantial. You're almost giving up like 4 or 5 points. So it'd be a bit of a reach to kind of take 3 wide receivers when your third one's in Devonta in this situation. So I think this kind of sets up well for, hey, we're just going to go with a naked Jalen. And maybe, nope, Jonathan Taylor gone as well. So we're just going to go with Jalen Hurts is probably the only person in that game. I don't have any confidence in what the tight end situation is going to look like with Dallas Goedert out. Stoll, Tyree Jackson, Grant Caltera. Honestly, I know nothing about any of those 3. No, thank you. And we're not going to go Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders doesn't catch nearly enough passes, and for upside inverse correlation because they steal touchdowns from each other, especially if we're hoping for Jalen Hurts to get a couple of rushing touchdowns for this lineup. So this leaves us with grabbing Dalton Schultz for that bring back for Jefferson that we discussed. I like that. Now we are down to likely just going with 2 running backs. As I mentioned, we have a fairly chalky team right now. I don't feel good about any form of uniqueness. So I think with our running backs, we're probably going to want to grab at least one that is that is just a unique play. We'll start off with just going kind of a best available chalky aspect. I don't love Pollard when Zeke sounds like he's going to play. Let's see if they have any. I think Zeke plays, and in that case, Pollard's not really attractive. Dameon Pierce versus Washington's a decent matchup. I don't think, let's go with Dameon Pierce. I don't think, Benjamin is going to take over like a major role immediately. I think eventually he slides in for what Burkhead was doing. What Pierce scares me a little is he's not been running the amount of routes that we saw earlier in the season, doesn't have as many of the kind of the targets, receptions. So if we get into a game where they are behind, it's a little worrisome. But I think, like, hey, when I was looking at what was available, I think it was worth going for. Dave Montgomery's really interesting where, I mean, great matchup. No Khalil Herbert. 33 is not unique enough for what I would hope for. I wonder if we do get the swap value off the Montgomery. Deonta Foreman was the other one that came to mind for me, where his projection isn't the best. It's not bad. His ADP is where we like to see he's not being drafted much. And because, like, hey, it's going against Baltimore, which is something that traditionally we'd be pretty scared with. But the way that Deonta Foreman wins is in these high volume games. So if Carolina can actually keep it close, and just run him, we do have substantial upside with Deonta Foreman. Now, is Chuba's role going to continue to increase? Maybe. I'm not sure. We'll see. You could consider Gibson as a bring back to Pierce, but I think those two, you want them both to be in games they are leading, so I don't love that. Singletary had 2 touchdowns last week, which is nice. With the weather, they may need to run a decent amount more here, but the thing is, even with his 2 touchdowns, still only had 15 points. Like, not getting the receptions, not getting the volume that we hope for. So I think we're going to go with Deonta Foreman because we need a bit of an off-the-board play for this lineup, considering how chalky the rest is. Gosh, it's so hard to review other people's teams because let me see if I can do a screenshot. Wait one sec. Wait for it. There we go. Okay, I got a screenshot so we can do some reviews after this. Okay, catching up on any of the chat while I was doing that draft. And let me share this quick little screenshot I got of the board so we can discuss. Okay, so you can see, just reading through some chat, see if there's anything else, questions or anything like that. Who was it? It was Gerald. I was going to take a look at yours. What's your name? What's your username, Gerald? If you were in this one. And so I can take a look. So for mine, we started off with Justin Jefferson. We got that straight, back-to-back wide receiver that I really like. Gets you the elite aspects. I think probably Amon-Ra's probably like the end of the elite for this week. That has the high projection, high ceiling that I like. Jalen Hurts, just in a naked situation with no bring back, no stack partner. We're just hoping Jalen Hurts kind of is a one-man show for that week. And does enough in the first half or against, a other team. Everything's at least like spread out enough that you don't need to bring back. Dalton Schultz gives us mini correlation with Justin Jefferson. I talked about the role for Dalton Schultz with Dak back and the efficiency. I like that. Maybe it drops down a little with Zeke coming back. But overall, I'm still pretty happy with it. And then Dameon Pierce and Deonta Foreman are 2 guys that are, you could say they're game script dependent. And, but I'm okay with that because this is a half PPR. We're going for touchdowns. We're hoping for high volume. Both of those could very easily surpass 25 touches in a game. And so we're hoping for those kind of game scripts. So they get 25 touches, each gets touchdown or 2. And that gives you that kind of high volume. All right. So no one else, I don't think. So we'll pause after that. So Gerald, next week, come on back, jump in a draft, give you a review. I am seeing a note from Bri that I can go back and look at draft boards. I did not think I was able to, so I'm going to see if I can figure this out. So Bri is saying you can still look at draft boards completely. Go to completed drafts and then click the box board. Okay. Completed drafts. There. Click the box board. Someone else, tell me, am I crazy? Am I missing this? Is Bry H just actually, is Bry H thinking maybe for like best ball where you can do this? I did not think you were able to with Battle Royale. I don't know where else you would click to get the entire draft board. Yeah, okay. Yeah. There's only a grid. That's what I thought. Okay, yeah. Thanks, Adrian. Yeah. So for best ball, you definitely can. But I think because they're doing like what? There's 50,000 people in this. So that's like 9,000, 8,000 drafts. That's just a ton of data for them to store. And so I think from a cost efficiency and just to make sure the app continues to kind of run smoothly, they just say, hey, we're going to forego the ability to be able to see the completed drafts. You can only see your team. I understand. Maybe in the future it'll be able to, but for now it's just only be able to see your team. That's why I got to do those kind of screenshots. But okay, overall this was fun. Cheers, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. As always, please, if you could, like the stream, leave a reply. That tells the big bosses that you guys are actually enjoying this and gets me to kind of continue coming back. I enjoy doing these. I enjoy as long as, hey, I am continuing to deliver value to you all. So thank you very much for joining us. If you have any questions, as always, feel free to reach out. Tag me at Justin Herzig on Twitter. Happy to chat through, just any of this stuff. Always really enjoy it. Other than that, I'll see you guys next week. Good luck. Enjoy the drafts. And World Cup starts this weekend. That'll be fun. All right. Talk to you guys later.